So you love podcasts, and you want to listen to more amazing content, but you have no idea what to listen to. And your friends keep telling you about great episodes, yet you can never remember what they told you. Well, here's the answer. Good Pods. It's the social app dedicated to podcasts where your friends, podcast listeners, and favorite podcast hosts all come together to share on their feeds what they recommend and what they listen to. You can connect to others, bookmark episodes, start a conversation about the episode, connect to the hosts, and most importantly, listen to great podcasts right in the Good Pods app. Download Good Pods wherever you get your apps and start sharing with a community that loves to listen. Good Pods. It's where to connect and listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have been to the Great Wall of China. I have seen the pyramids of Egypt. I even witnessed a grown man satisfy a camel. But never in all my years as a sportscaster have I witnessed something as improbable, as impossible as what we've witnessed here today. It's Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Hey Thrive Loud listeners, Lou Diamond here. Get ready for a fun interview with the legendary king of the high wire, Nik Wallenda. You're going to enjoy this conversation. You're also going to notice that there's wind blowing in the background, which could only mean that he actually did this interview on a tightrope high wire. That's the only thing I could think of. Whatever it might be, you're going to enjoy it. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this great interview. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond, and today on Thrive Loud, we have a 7th-generation member of a legendary family, known worldwide for his incredible feats upon the high wire and beyond. He is the holder of 11 world records, among which are the highest 4-level 8-person pyramid on the wire, the highest and longest bicycle ride on a wire, and hanging from a helicopter by his teeth. Because that's the type of guest we get on this program, Thrive Loud. He is the author of Facing Fear, Step Out in Faith and Rise Above What's Holding You Back, which is coming out next week, September 15th. You've seen his death-defying feats on national television over Times Square, the Grand Canyon, and an active volcano. And today, he faces the ultimate challenge coming on to Thrive Loud, which we had to remove the net from this podcast to do this interview. Thrive Loud listeners, the amazing Nik Wallenda. Nik, how are you today?
I am great. Thanks for that intro.
So, Nik, there's a whole bunch of questions. When I learned I had the opportunity to talk to you, my brain exploded. But I want to just dive into the main piece of what we're going to talk about. What is the feeling that you have right before you're about to put your foot on the wire before you start to walk across?
Goodness. Well, it's a slew of emotions for sure. There's obviously the sense of, I don't want to call it fear. I call it respect, what you would call fear. A respect for the fact that what I'm doing is very dangerous. A respect for the fact that, looking over the edge of this skyscraper, over a cable that is the size of a nickel, and I'm about to take that first step, that there's danger below. But also a sense of excitement. My great-grandfather probably said it best when he said, life is on the wire and everything else is just waiting. And for our family, that is that is our passion. That is where we find joy. And sometimes, as ironic as this sounds, it's where I find peace. And what I mean by that is I'm not worried about my teenagers who are bickering or who aren't doing well in school or the argument I had with my wife, but I'm so focused on what I'm doing. I'm not worried about coronavirus. I'm not worried about the troubles of the world. I'm so focused on what I'm doing that it becomes peaceful.
So Nik, a lot of people will listen and they will see your name on this podcast episode. They will hear you here and they will be like, what draws someone to want to do this? I'm going to rewind before asking that question. This is the family business that has been going on for decades. So I guess it's only natural to you because this is what everybody does. But do you need certain types of physical skills or things to be able to do what you do?
Yeah, look, I mean, in fact, it goes back centuries, which is even crazier. But the reality is, yeah, I've got 15 family members that currently walk on wires performing, and I've got probably 45 that don't, that have that name. So the reality is, it certainly takes a special kind of person to be able to overcome. It is such a mind game, which is a lot of what my book is about. But it is such a mind game. And it takes a certain type of person and mind to be able to overcome that. Now, what I would tell you is, over centuries, we have been passed down different skills, and not just the physical side, but on the mental side, that help us overcome those challenges.
Nik, practice makes perfect, obviously. These are the activities and death-defying feats, which literally is what they are. We'll talk about that in a bit, a little further. But as you're doing this, to practice this, what would you say is your daily practice routine, or the amount of time that you spend practicing walking on a wire?
Yeah, so I try to be on a wire at least 8 hours a week. So whether that might be 3 hours one day and take a couple days off, I try to at least do an hour a day, 5 days a week, but it doesn't always work out because of my schedule and travel. But at least 8 hours a week, and however that's divided up is fine. But really, you're right. Practice doesn't make perfect, but it makes it a little safer, if you will. In my book, I talk about, and we'll talk about it in a bit, but an accident that happened even though we'd practiced immensely. So I practice on a wire in my backyard. I live in Sarasota, Florida. I've got a wire that is about 700 feet long. It is about 18 feet off the ground on the ends. And then in the middle, because there's a catenary, which is a fancy word for a smiley face, start at 18 feet, walk downhill, then walk uphill to another 18 feet. So I'll walk that multiple times. A lot of my training involves bringing in wind machines, bringing in weather machines. If there's a tropical storm in Florida without lightning, I get on the wire. It's just great practice because it's windy and it's wet and just tough conditions. Again, always trying to prepare for worst cases. I just recently, my last TV special live on ABC was over an active volcano where I had to wear a gas mask, I had to wear goggles, I had to train with an oxygen tank, I had to train not being able to see. So a lot of it is geared, a lot of my training is geared to the actual event. But as a whole, if there's not a particular event or a particularly unique, challenging event coming up, I'll be on the wire about 8 hours a week.
Nik, a lot of these incredible feats, all I keep thinking about in my head was, the Evel Knievel syndrome, in the sense that every time he did something, the next time he did something, it had to be bigger and better. I mean, going over Times Square, the Grand Canyon, an active volcano. Is there a lot of family planning around these type of activities? Okay, what can we do next?
It's interesting. I told you I have 15 other family members that do this, but none of them have done it on the scale that I've done it. I think I just have my mind is even more unique than theirs, if you will. They've all, don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything away from them. They're all amazing aerialists and performers and wire walkers. But my mind just, when I drive through a city, I drove through Pittsburgh 10 years ago and was like, I'm going to walk across the Allegheny River. And within a year, I walked across the Allegheny River. I was flying into Mexico City to do a corporate speaking event with my wife, and I looked down and we flew over a famous volcano. And I said to my wife, hey, I want to walk over an active volcano. And 4 years later, I walked over an active volcano. So it's sort of just, my mind is just a little bit unique in that sense. I'm always working on the next. I'm always trying to one up myself. I've been blessed to be an elite class. First of all, there aren't a whole lot of wire walkers, obviously, so there's not a ton of competition, but there are even fewer that will do it at the level, if any, the level that I've done it. So one of the challenges of that is you can become very complacent because you've done it. Well, I've walked over Niagara Falls, the Grand Canyon, as you mentioned, an active volcano, 11 world records, blindfolded, you name it. So there's something inside of me that drives me to continue to outdo myself. I'm very competitive, and I've had to train myself to be competitive with myself in this world. I mean, I operate some businesses, and I love that world and competitiveness of that side as well. But on the performing realm, it is really me pushing myself.
I'm going to address this because there's a thing that I talk about, and as a speaker, and by the way, your message is so on point. And when you think of somebody delivering a message of facing fear, I can't think of any other person you'd want to hear from. So we'll talk about your book in the plug section of the program. But I always think of it as moving through fear into courage. So I opened the show here asking you what it feels like right before you're about to step on the wire. I want to know what it feels like after that sense of accomplishment to someone who's as competitive as you and obviously has to put a level of focus that's almost meditative to be able to deliver and perform what you do. What is it like when you complete your task?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a feeling of accomplishment, but I will also tell you that once it's done, there's almost a feeling of, and I think, postpartum, it's almost like, oh, it's over, it's done. And I think part of the reason for that is just to walk over Niagara Falls, I had to change a law in the United States and one in Canada that was over 100 years old. So all the way up through government, legislation had to be written with my name on it, exempting me from a law that was over 100 years old. The process of that alone took 2 years, and it was very emotional. It was very drawn out. It was very, very hard to get that changed. As we know, it's hard to get anything done in politics, let alone permission for a guy to walk a wire. And I love the challenge of that, of changing that law. But once it's done, you look back and go, wow, 2 years, and after 20 minutes, 22 minutes, it's done. Same with Grand Canyon, the process of that. Times Square was harder than changing those two laws in two countries to get local city officials to approve and to shut down Times Square for 3 days, 3 nights, basically. That's not an easy task. So again, there's a sense of accomplishment, excitement, relief. Obviously, there's relief. A lot of my walks, if it's my choice, I'm not tethered and I'm not using a safety. If I'm wearing a safety, it's because whoever my network partner is at the time is making me wear a safety. That's the only time I'll wear a safety. So there is a sense of relief. Safeties get caught up. If you have to use a safety, it's more shameful. I talk about shame in my book, but it's more shameful than making it across than falling to the ground in a sense. Although I would lose my life, there's a lot of shame in that. I never have used a safety. I've never had to use one. Other than I've had to have one on again because of network partners. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a mixed bag of emotions on both ends of that walk. Even 3/4 of the way across, I start to go, oh man, I want to slow down. I don't want this to be over already, because it's my passion. It's what I love doing, and it's what I've worked so hard to get to.
Nick, I would be remiss or not responsible if I didn't address this component of what you do. Obviously, there could be people who are not nearly as professional and not as adept that would see what you're doing and want to imitate it.
Sure.
How do you communicate the message about the danger of what this task is with the right warning that this is something you should not try?
Well, I mean, first off, I would say if you want to imitate Nik Wallenda, then imitate Nik Wallenda and spend your entire life. My mom was 6 months pregnant with me and still walking the wire.
Wow.
I've walked a wire longer than my feet have been on terra firma, 18 months old. I've walked literally thousands and thousands of miles on cables the size of a nickel above city skyscrapers and skylines and training, etc. So I would say if you truly want to do it, I would encourage you to do it, but I would also encourage you to do it the right way. Yes, of course, there's dangers, there's risks. Everything I do is a very calculated risk. What I mean by that is you're taking a risk when you get in your car. You're calculating, you're banking on the fact that a drunk driver is not going to come at you head on, or that the driver next to you. If you think about just driving on the interstate, there's times I'm driving at 75 miles per hour on the interstate going, that's a deadly weapon next to me, and I don't know the person driving whether they're capable or not. That is, it's a calculated risk. It's the same with me. When I get on that wire, for instance, let's take the Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon, I trained with 90-mile-an-hour wind machines. I walked on the cable 4 times the length. I walked the entire length blindfolded, so that I was more, and I walked the entire length backwards as well, so that I knew I was trained properly for it. We had done studies that showed the winds wouldn't exceed 60 miles per hour, and in fact, I did get hit with 48-mile-an-hour gusts while I was on the wire. But again, when I get that gust, my mind can go crazy and say, holy cow, that's a lot of wind, or I can go, you've handled more than that, you'll be fine. Again, much about the power of the mind, but I train and prepare for everything. I train with an oxygen deprivation mask. I had to wear a gas mask to walk over that volcano. So I wore an oxygen deprivation mask that brought my oxygen levels down to 30% of what I would normally get. 30% of what I got through that, I got about 20% restriction through the mask I wore. So therefore, well in excess of anything I was going to face, so that I was prepared. I also trained to hold that wire, for 15 to 20 minutes. I've got rescue teams that can be to me within 3 to 5 minutes. I train to get back on the wire. So it's not as though I just go out there and say, hey, I'm going to walk a wire because I've seen someone do it. It is, I've trained, I've prepared properly. I'm more than capable of doing so. And I encourage people to pursue their dreams, even though they might include some fear, because I think the best dreams, your dreams will come true if you're willing to face the fear and work through that fear to achieve those dreams. So I encourage people, yeah, man, you want to do this? Do it, but do it the right way. And if you want to imitate what Nik Wallenda does, then imitate what Nik Wallenda does.
New book, Facing Fear, Stepping Out in Faith and Rise Above What's Holding You Back. I want to tease the listeners here. We'll give all the links and stuff in the plug section. I want to tease the listeners into one of the key messages, I guess, you speak about and write about in this book, about maybe the mindset you need to be in to approach fear.
Yeah, that's right. I wrote this book, started writing this book because in 2017, we were training to break our own world record with a 4-layer, 8-person pyramid. We trained for about 2 months. It went great. We started at 2 feet, went up to 10 feet, went up to 15 feet, and then at 15 feet, we go to full height. So that world record we were breaking was set at 20 feet by us back in 2001, but we were doing a special event. We wanted to do it at 28 feet. So we formed this 8-person pyramid. We trained up high, one rehearsal, everything went smooth. I'm not going to say perfect. It went smooth. It never goes perfect the first time up high because there's so much, it's so much about the mind and where you allow your mind to go. Said, let's take the night off. We went back the next day, went up to rehearse, made our way out on the wire. I'm in the back on the bottom, and that pyramid collapsed. When that pyramid collapsed, 5 of my family members fell to the ground. I caught the wire, my cousin caught the wire, and 1 guy stayed standing. My sister, my aunt, 3 close friends fell to the ground, broken bones everywhere. Chances of surviving from falling at over 40 feet, which their heads were up that high because we're stacked in a pyramid, are about 25 to 30%. So rushed to the hospital. My sister had landed on her head in a coma, had crushed her face. At this point, she has 73 screws and plates in her face alone, literally broke every bone in her face. She's in a coma. And the next day I had to perform. I do a lot of motivational speaking, and I do a lot of motivational speaking for big corporations where they'll rent out an entire arena, and I'll actually walk on a wire 120 feet and speak from that wire. So I got on the wire, performed for the next 6 weeks straight. I had a contract to perform for the next 6 weeks, performed every day. And what I had done is buried that accident and not really acknowledged what had happened. I just kind of went on. I did a big press conference, talked about it, how our family overcomes and how our family doesn't give up and the show must go on and just what our family's done for 200 years. And I took about 6 weeks off after that. And then I was contracted to headline on Big Apple Circus in New York City doing that same pyramid. And we made our way to New York, started training, and I started watching that accident happen in front of me. Over and over again. So I would just watch it. I would be on the wire holding the pyramid and it would collapse in front of me mentally, but not physically. And it came to the point where I went back to my apartment in New York and I said to my wife, I'm done. I can't walk the wire anymore. And I'll never forget what she said. She said, look, I support you in whatever decision you make. However, your family for 200 years has lived by the show must go on. You have lived to inspire people and encourage people to never give up no matter what challenges they face. And you're saying you're going to give up, Nik. That's not Nik. That's not the Nik I married. And most wives probably wouldn't say that. Probably would say, absolutely awesome. Thank God you're giving it up. My wife comes from 8 generations of circus. She has 2 Guinness World Records. She is an amazing aerialist and daredevil herself. So I remember sitting there and thinking, I don't think I can do this. And then really reflecting on my family and really reflecting on what my great-grandfather had gone through with an accident they had back in 1962 where 2 family members were killed and his son was paralyzed from the waist down and that history and thinking, if he did it, I can do it too. I just have to figure out how. And really what it is, as I have done the speaking circuit many times, I talk to people about the power of the mind and where we allow our minds to go and how a negative thought or a thought of fear can creep in like a weed growing in your garden. And if you don't immediately take that weed out, if you don't counter that negative with something positive, eventually it'll take over that garden and you won't be able to function. And that's really what happened to me is I just started believing these lies of the fact that, I'd held that pyramid probably 5,000 to 10,000 times. In practice, we would do it 16 to 20 times, 3 times a day, just to train. So I'd held it thousands of times, yet that one accident is all I could focus on mentally. And really the book is talking about that process of what it took for me to overcome what was honestly the greatest challenge in my career. It wasn't changing 2 laws in 2 countries. It wasn't walking across all these crazy places. It was really the challenge overcoming my mind, and my mind using it as a tool. You know, I think there's healthy fears and there's unhealthy fears. There's the healthy fear that says, hey, don't quit your job until you're down the road far enough to actually achieve that dream that you're working on. And then there's that unhealthy fear that says, don't quit your job because you get a paycheck every Friday and don't even pursue your dreams.
Right.
So really it is the game. It is the struggle that we go through in that battle of our mind.
Nick, I just realized the PGA Tour needs to get you, for any of these golfers that have putting yips. I mean, just the way you're approaching the fear situation is what they need to do. I love that analogy.
Yes, no, I think that's a good idea.
So let's do this. Let's do the admin part of the show, and then we're going to get into what I call Fun Street here on Thrive Loud. Share with the listeners all the places people can find you, the book, social media. We will put every single link out there, but it always gets more engagement when they hear from you.
Cool. So nikwallenda.com. It's just N-I-K, the word wall, the word end, and the letter A. nikwallenda.com. You can actually find all sorts of information about where I'll be, where I'm touring, where I'm speaking, as well as you can purchase or pre-order the book. It comes out again on the 15th. And also, you can also purchase the book on any online retailer or at any local bookstore.
Permission, Nick, to go down Fun Street here on Thrive Loud. You're going to have a
let's do it.
Okay. First of all, share with the listeners your all-time favorite movie.
Man, that's a tough one, but I would have to say The Greatest Showman, and just because it ties into my family heritage so much, and P.T. Barnum, which is somebody I've always admired.
Was there overlap all the way back in history? There must have been.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All the way back till, since the family came over in 1928 with Ringling Brothers and P.T. Barnum, for sure.
Got it. Right at that time. All right. So this is kind of like the speed round. It's kind of like Family Feud, but it's really, there's no 100 people we surveyed. We're just asking you, and we're just going to get your first reaction that I say to these things. These are things that you enjoy and make you feel good. All right. A song that you love to listen to or that you like to listen to get pumped up.
Oh, I love U2 and Bono. Anything U2.
A favorite food that's not a dessert.
Steak. I love red meat.
A favorite dessert.
I like chocolate ice cream.
An activity you wish you did more of.
Exercise.
An activity you wish you did less of.
Exercise.
If you could snap your fingers and go anywhere, where are you?
Oh, I'm spending time with my great-grandfather who fell and lost his life a year before I was born.
If you could snap your fingers and be prepared and have done all the expectations to do a walk that you have yet to do, what would that be? And where would that be?
That's a good one. I would love to walk between the pyramids in Egypt or the Bosphorus, walk from one continent to another.
Awesome. This is an honor and a pleasure, and it's really funny because I love the way you approach thinking about the task that you do, and almost, yes, it's entertainment, but it's a mindset, and that's the battle that you've overcome, and I think you've shared that with our listeners here today, and this has been an honor for me, Nick. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Hope you had fun.
I did. Thanks so much for having me.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us, and until next time, keep thriving onward and upward, and remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook at Thrive Loud. And check us out on the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.